All right, ready to dive deep into some really thought-provoking stuff.
I'm always ready.
This time, we're tackling your collection of sources on spirituality, meditation, and self-discovery.
Lots of poetic language, insightful stories.
Maybe even a chuckle or two.
Oh, for sure, while we ponder the mysteries of existence.
Exactly. Our main source this time is a cup of tea, and it's brewing up some potent wisdom.
It certainly is. You know, it's written in a way that's surprisingly accessible.
Huh?
It doesn't feel like a lecture.
More like
More like a conversation with a wise friend.
I like where this is going.
Yeah.
So what's the essence of this deep dive? What are we hoping to sip on, so to speak?
We're diving into practical insights on meditation, understanding ourselves better, and connecting with something bigger than ourselves.
Sounds deep.
And get this, the source kicks things off with a line that really grabbed me. Truth is hidden under a golden lid.
Ooh, that's a juicy one. Makes you think of our own minds, all those thoughts swirling around, worries, to-do lists.
Right.
It's like our minds are the golden lid, blocking us from seeing the truth clearly.
Exactly. The source describes the mind as this golden lid that has smothered us. We get so tangled up in our thoughts that we lose sight of what lies beneath.
It's like we're so busy staring at our phones that we miss the incredible sunset happening right in front of us.
Ouch, too real.
I've totally done that. Scrolling through social media while missing out on the actual life happening around me. So how do we pry open this golden lid and see things clearly?
The source emphasizes that simply becoming aware of this mental clutter is a huge first step. Just noticing that your mind is doing its golden lid thing is a big deal.
So just noticing our thoughts without getting carried away by them is key.
It is simple, but not always easy. Think of it like this. You wouldn't judge a fish for swimming, right?
I guess not.
It's in their nature. Same with our minds, they're meant to think. But we don't have to be swept away by every thought. We can create space, observe them, and choose which ones to engage with.
Okay, starting to see the light here. But speaking of letting go, the source also talks a lot about non-attachment, especially when it comes to our desires.
Right.
And let's be real, I'm pretty attached to my weekend sleep-ins and my comfy sweatpants.
I feel you. The source isn't saying we need to become emotionless robots.
Oh,
Or give up everything we enjoy. It's more about understanding that our desires, when they're calling the shots, can create a lot of inner turmoil.
Because we're constantly worried about losing those things or not getting what we want.
Right. There's a great story in the source about a Sufi fakir who appears attached to his possessions. A beggar criticizes him for this, and the fakir immediately gives everything away. But then the beggar gets anxious about his own begging bowl. The point. The fakir was never truly attached to those things in the first place. He was free.
Whoa, that's a mind bender.
Yeah.
So it's not about denying our desires, but changing our relationship with them.
Exactly. Non-attachment is about recognizing that true happiness isn't found in grasping for things outside ourselves. It's about finding that inner peace that doesn't crumble when things don't go our way.
This is all starting to make sense. But how does meditation fit into this whole picture?
That's where the rubber meets the road. The source presents meditation as the path to uncovering that inner peace and clarity. And the advice is refreshingly straightforward. Drop all ideas of achieving, just do it naturally.
I love that. No pressure, no need to become a meditation guru overnight. Just show up and see what happens.
Exactly. It's about letting go of expectations and allowing the experience to unfold. The source describes it as slowing down the constant chatter of the mind, finding a sense of peace, and even experiencing a feeling of emptiness.
Emptiness.
Which, by the way, is a good thing in this context.
Emptiness is a good thing. That's a new one for me. Care to elaborate?
Think of it like decluttering your home. You get rid of the stuff you don't need, creating space for the things that truly matter. In meditation, that emptiness is about creating space in your mind, allowing peace and clarity to emerge.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that could be pretty amazing. But the source also mentions this idea of the witness emerging during meditation. What exactly is that supposed to be?
It's the part of you that simply observes your thoughts and feelings without judgment, like the quiet observer in the back of your mind who's just watching the show, not getting caught up in the drama.
So it's like that feeling when you're watching a movie and you know it's not real, but you still get caught up in the story. The witness is the part of you that remembers it's just a movie.
Exactly. And the more we practice meditation, the stronger our connection to that witness becomes. We learn to detach from our thoughts and emotions, seeing them as passing clouds rather than the whole sky.
Wow, that's a powerful image.
Yeah.
It makes meditation seem less intimidating, more like a skill you can develop over time.
That's the beauty of it. The Source emphasizes that even brief glimpses of this inner peace are like signposts, guiding us towards that deeper truth within ourselves.
This is all so insightful, but before we get too carried away, I want to touch on another fascinating idea from the Source. The power of asking.
Okay.
It even quotes Christ saying, "Ask, and you shall be given." What's the significance of that in this context?
That's where things get really interesting. The Source isn't talking about asking for material things. It's about asking for a deeper understanding, a connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Hmm,
And it suggests that the more focused and sincere our asking becomes, the closer we get to this idea of the asker dissolving altogether.
dissolving the asker.
Yeah.
Okay, now you've officially lost me. What does that even look like?
Imagine a point of evaporation. The water disappears, leaving no trace of its previous form.
Okay,
Similarly, the Source suggests that through focused asking, the separate sense of I, who is doing the asking, starts to fade.
interesting.
What remains is pure, unadulterated longing, a complete surrender to the unknown.
Wow, I can only begin to imagine what that must feel like. But it makes me wonder, what am I truly longing for deep down? What am I asking for in the grand scheme of things?
That's a profound question. And the Source suggests that when our asking is aligned with our deepest truth, the answer will reveal itself. It's not about forcing anything, but about creating space for clarity and insight to emerge.
This is all starting to feel like a journey of peeling back layers to uncover something precious hidden within us.
Exactly. And speaking of journeys, the Source also emphasizes the joy of surrender. It's not about giving up or admitting defeat, but trusting in something larger than ourselves.
I love how the Source uses examples from nature to illustrate this, like a seed surrendering to the earth to sprout,
Right.
or a river surrendering to gravity to reach the ocean.
Those are perfect examples. It's about aligning ourselves with the natural flow of life, trusting that there's an intelligence at play that's far greater than our limited understanding.
You know, I can relate to that. When I think about times in my life when I finally stopped trying to control everything and just went with the flow, things always seem to work out better than I could have planned.
Precisely. Because when we surrender, we open ourselves to possibilities we couldn't have even imagined.
Yeah.
We tap into a wisdom that's beyond our limited perspective.
This is all so inspiring. But before we get too carried away, I think it's time for a little pause to let all this wisdom sink in.
I agree. We've covered a lot of ground, from the golden lid of our minds to the transformative power of surrendering to something greater than ourselves. When we come back, we'll dive even deeper into these concepts and explore some practical ways to apply them in our daily lives.
Stay tuned, truth seekers. We'll be right back. We're back and ready to dive deeper into a cup of tea. We were just talking about surrender and how it's not about giving up, but about trusting in something bigger than ourselves.
Yes, and the Source beautifully connects this idea of surrender to love. It even goes as far as to say that love is a kind of religion.
A kind of religion.
Not in the traditional sense, but in the way it connects us to something beyond our individual selves.
Intriguing. Tell me more about this love is religion idea.
Yeah.
It's making me think about those moments when you listen to a piece of music that just moves you to your core.
Right.
Or when you're in nature and feel this overwhelming sense of awe and connection.
Exactly. The Source talks about how love dissolves the boundaries we create between ourselves and everything else. It's not just romantic love,
Yeah.
but a love for all of life, for the beauty around us, even for the things we might find challenging.
So it's like love is the universal solvent, breaking down the walls we build around our hearts and allowing us to experience a deeper connection to everything.
Beautifully put. The Source uses a powerful analogy to describe this. Imagine icebergs floating in the vast ocean. Each iceberg is separate, distinct. But when the sun shines down on them, they melt and become one with the ocean again.
Okay, I can see that. Love melts away those barriers, revealing the underlying unity of it all. But let's be honest, that kind of expansive love can feel pretty overwhelming sometimes.
It can be, but the Source reminds us that it's not about forcing this kind of love. It's about cultivating it. It starts with being present, appreciating the beauty around us, even in the simplest things, like noticing the way sunlight filters through the leaves,
Right.
or the sound of laughter in the street.
So cultivating that kind of love starts with paying attention,
Yeah,
with being more present in our everyday lives.
exactly. And this brings us back to meditation. It's a practice that helps us develop that muscle of presence. The Source describes meditation as a process of slowing down those racing thoughts,
Uh-huh.
creating space for peace,
Okay.
and even experiencing a feeling of emptiness, which, as we talked about before, isn't a bad thing.
Right, it's like clearing out the clutter to make space for something new and beautiful to emerge.
I have to be honest, sometimes I struggle with the idea of sitting still and meditating. My mind just wants to jump around like a squirrel on caffeine. I hear you. And the good news is that the Source acknowledges that there are different approaches to meditation. It's not just about sitting cross-legged on a cushion.
Good.
The essence of meditation is about cultivating presence.
Yeah.
And that can be done in many ways.
Really? So how else can we cultivate presence if traditional meditation isn't our thing?
The Source suggests that any activity can become a meditation if we bring full awareness to it. It could be
Hmm.
walking, gardening, even washing the dishes.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. So it's not about the activity itself, but about how we approach it.
Precisely. It's about bringing mindful attention to whatever we're doing in the present moment. If you're washing the dishes, really feel the warm water on your hands.
Yeah.
Notice the bubbles, the scent of the soap. If you're walking, pay attention to the sensations of your feet on the ground, the rhythm of your breath, the sights and sounds around you.
That makes so much sense. I'm definitely going to experiment with that. But the Source also talks about the importance of effort and surrender in our spiritual journey.
Mm-hmm.
How do those two seemingly opposite ideas work together?
That's a great question. And the Source suggests that effort is essential in the beginning
Hmm.
to get the ball rolling, to break free from those old habits of thinking and behaving that keep us stuck.
It's like pushing a car that's run out of gas. You need that initial burst of effort to get it moving again.
Exactly. But the Source also emphasizes that at some point, we need to let go of that effort and surrender to something larger than ourselves. It's about finding the balance between striving and allowing.
So it's like learning to ride a bike. At first, you're pedaling furiously, trying to keep your balance, but eventually you reach a point where you can relax a bit, trust the process, and enjoy the ride.
I love that analogy, and that's ultimately what this Source is pointing towards, a state of being where we are fully present, fully alive, and fully in harmony with ourselves and the universe.
This is all sounding very mystical, but I appreciate how the Source also offers some practical advice for navigating the ups and downs of everyday life.
Absolutely. And one of the most surprising pieces of advice is to embrace insecurity. The Source actually argues that security is an illusion
Really?
and that clinging to it only creates more suffering.
Whoa, that's a radical idea.
Hmm.
We're always told to seek security in our jobs, our relationships, our finances. It's like the foundation of our modern world.
I know. But the Source suggests that true security comes not from external circumstances,
Oh.
but from a deep inner knowing that we are connected to something larger than ourselves.
So it's about trusting in the universe, even when things feel uncertain and shaky.
Exactly. It's about letting go of the need to control everything and embracing the unpredictable nature of life. Because let's be real, trying to control everything is exhausting
Right.
and ultimately futile.
It's like trying to hold back the tide with a broom. You're just going to get
Oh.
swept away. So instead of fighting against the current, we can learn to ride the waves, so to speak.
That's the idea. The Source even uses the image of a river flowing towards the ocean. It encounters rocks and obstacles along the way, but it never stops flowing. It adapts. It finds a way around or through the challenges.
And that's what we're being invited to do in our own lives.
Yeah,
To be like that river flowing with the current,
Yeah.
adapting to the ever-changing landscape.
exactly. And speaking of embracing change, the Source also talks about the importance of being a yay-sayer to life.
A yay-sayer. What does that even mean? Does it mean we have to say yes to everything, even things we don't want to do?
That's a great question. And the Source clarifies that it's not about blindly accepting everything that comes our way,
Okay.
but about approaching life with an attitude of openness and curiosity. It's about saying yes to the adventure, even if we don't know where it will lead.
So it's about shifting our perspective from fear and resistance to curiosity and willingness, kind of like saying yes to trying a new food, even if you're not sure if you'll like it.
Exactly. It's about being open to new experiences, new perspectives, even new challenges. And the Source suggests that by cultivating this yes attitude, we create a space for grace to flow into our lives.
Because we're no longer putting up walls and resisting the flow.
Precisely. It's like opening the windows and doors of our hearts and minds, allowing fresh air and sunlight to pour in.
I love that. But before we get too carried away with the metaphors, there's one last piece of wisdom from the Source that I want to touch on. It talks about the importance of dying to the self in order to find true life.
Ah, yes. That's the ultimate paradox of the spiritual journey. The Source suggests that by letting go of our attachment to our limited selves, to who we think we are, we actually open ourselves to a deeper, more expansive experience of being.
It's like the caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. It has to let go of its old form in order to become something new and beautiful. But what does this dying to the self actually look like in practice?
It's not about physical death, but about a psychological and spiritual transformation. It's about letting go of our limiting beliefs, our fears, our attachments to the past. It's about surrendering to the unknown and allowing ourselves to be reborn into a new way of being.
Wow, that's deep.
Hmm.
But it also feels incredibly liberating. It's like shedding an old skin that no longer fits.
Exactly, because when we let go of who we think we are, we open ourselves to the infinite possibilities of who we can become.
This is all so profound. But I think we've covered a lot of ground for one deep dive.
Yeah.
What are some of the key takeaways that you'd like our listeners to ponder?
I'd say the most important takeaway is that truth isn't something we find out there somewhere. It's something we discover within ourselves. Practices like meditation, cultivating love, and embracing surrender can help us uncover that inner truth.
And that this journey of self-discovery is an ongoing process, not a destination we arrive at. It's about being present each step of the way, embracing the challenges, and trusting that we are exactly where we need to be.
Beautifully said. And the source material we've explored today offers a beautiful roadmap for navigating this journey with grace and wisdom.
I couldn't agree more. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I wanted to share a final thought-provoking line from the source. It says, "Life is an infinite mystery. Therefore, those who are filled with knowledge are deprived of life." What do you make of that?
That's a powerful statement. And I think it reminds us that true wisdom comes not from accumulating knowledge, but from experiencing life fully, with all its mystery and wonder. It's about embracing the unknown instead of trying to fit everything into neat little boxes.
So it's about approaching life with a sense of humility, recognizing that we'll never have all the answers, and being okay with that.
Exactly. It's about approaching life with a sense of awe and curiosity, like a child exploring the world for the first time.
Instead of trying to figure everything out, we can simply allow ourselves to be amazed by it. I love that. But I think it's time for another pause to let all this wisdom sink in.
I agree. When we come back, we'll explore even more insights from a cup of tea and discuss how we can apply these profound ideas to our daily lives.
Stay tuned, truth seekers. We'll be right back. All right, we're back for the final stretch of our deep dive into a cup of tea. We've been exploring some pretty mind-bending concepts.
We have, haven't we? From the illusion of security to the idea of dying to our old selves, quite a journey.
It really has been. What strikes me is how this source encourages us to question everything.
Yeah.
Even things we think we know for sure.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what if reality is far more expansive and mysterious than you ever imagined?
I think that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating, right? It's like shaking up the snow globe of our perceptions and seeing the world with fresh eyes.
Speaking of shaking things up, the source talks about how truth can't be found through seeking, but through losing ourselves. How can we even wrap our heads around that?
It is a paradox, isn't it? But the very act of seeking implies separation
Separation.
between the seeker and the sought. It reinforces this idea that there's a separate me trying to grasp something outside of myself.
So it's like chasing a shadow. You can never quite catch it because it's not a separate entity. It's just an extension of you.
Exactly. The source suggests that the path to truth lies in surrendering the very idea of a separate self, in letting go of the ego that clings to the illusion of control.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually do that? Letting go of the ego sounds like a pretty tall order.
Well, the source points to practices like meditation, where we cultivate a state of no mind. It's not about emptying our minds completely, but about creating a space of pure awareness where the boundaries of me and not me begin to dissolve.
So like stepping out of the frame of our own limited perspective.
Yes. And experiencing a wider view of reality. The source compares it to a drop of water merging with the ocean.
Okay.
It loses its individual identity and becomes part of something vast and boundless.
And that's the ultimate goal, right? To transcend our limited sense of self and experience the interconnectedness of it all.
That's the heart of it. And the source offers all sorts of practical advice to guide us along the way. It talks about the importance of being present, of embracing insecurity, of cultivating a love for all that is, of saying yes to life in all its messy glory.
It's like a treasure map, leading us to the ultimate treasure,
Yeah,
our true nature.
exactly. But the journey isn't always easy. The source acknowledges that there will be challenges, obstacles, moments of doubt.
It's like climbing a mountain.
Hmm.
There might be steep slopes and treacherous paths,
Yeah.
but the view from the top is breathtaking.
What a beautiful way to put it. And remember, the source reminds us that we don't have to climb this mountain alone.
Oh.
There's a guiding force, a universal intelligence that's always supporting us.
It's like having an invisible Sherpa.
Yes, guiding us along the treacherous mountain path, making sure we don't fall off the edge.
I love that analogy, and I think it captures the essence of this source's message. We are never truly alone. We are always connected to something larger than ourselves, and the journey to self-discovery is a journey toward remembering our true nature.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on life and spirituality.
Me too. I hope our listeners feel the same way. So if there was just one key takeaway you'd want them to walk away with, what would it be?
I would say this. The truth you seek is already within you. You don't have to search for it somewhere out there.
It's a matter of uncovering it, of peeling back the layers of conditioning and limiting beliefs that obscure it.
It's like polishing a diamond. The beauty is already inherent. You just have to remove the dirt and grime that's covering it up.
Perfect analogy. This source material we've explored offers a toolbox filled with ways to do just that.
It does. So I encourage our listener to take what resonates and experiment. Try out the meditation techniques, cultivate that sense of wonder and appreciation for the world, embrace those challenges as opportunities for growth.
And most importantly, be kind to yourself along the way.
Yes, this isn't a race to enlightenment, it's a journey of self-discovery.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'd like to leave our listener with one final thought from A Cup of Tea. Live like a river, not like a pond. What do you think that means to you?
I think it's a beautiful metaphor for the importance of being in constant motion, of flowing with the current of life, of embracing change and growth. A pond can become stagnant, but a river is always moving, always evolving.
It's about being dynamic, adaptable, and ever-evolving, rather than getting stuck in our comfort zones.
Right. It's about living with a sense of purpose and direction while also being open to the unexpected twists and turns that life throws our way.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into A Cup of Tea. We hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as we did.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep flowing like a river towards the vast ocean of truth within you.
Happy travels, Truth Seeker.